A big day today. It's decision day for the city that never sleeps, New York. Yes, we are talking about that as voters are choosing their next mayor in one of the most politically charged local contests in years. This election is being closely watched across the world as it marks the first major vote since President Donald Trump's return to the White House. The three-way race pits Democratic candidate Zohran Mamdani against former Governor Andrew Cuomo, now running as an independent, and Republican nominee Curtis Sliwa. Trump has thrown his weight behind Cuomo, urging Republicans to vote strategically, saying whether you like Andrew Cuomo or not, you really have no choice. You must vote for him. President Donald Trump has repeatedly targeted Mamdani, calling him a communist and warning that New York's survival is at stake if he wins. For Mamdani, this election is about delivering change. The 34-year-old state legislator from Queens and self-described democratic socialist has built a campaign around tackling inequality, expanding housing and taxing the wealthy. He's been endorsed by progressive icons like Senator Bernie Sanders and Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, giving his campaign national attention and also grassroots momentum. Stalwarts of the Democrats, including, in fact, U.S. President Barack Obama, former one, also backed Mamdani. Andrew Cuomo, once a dominant figure in New York's politics, is now staging a political comeback after resigning as governor in 2021 amid sexual harassment allegations, which he has denied so far. Running as an independent, Cuomo is positioning himself as a centrist alternative, warning that Mamdani's policies could drive away businesses and also worsen New York's fiscal situation. He's telling voters he represents stability and experience in contrast to Mamdani's quote-unquote untested socialism. Meanwhile, Curtis Sliwa, the Republican candidate and a well-known radio host and founder of the Guardian Angels, is pitching a new and older, in fact, campaign. Sliwa has vowed to expand police presence, crack down on homelessness and lower taxes as well. However, polls suggest he remains far behind Mamdani and Cuomo, trailing in single digits, though he hopes to benefit from delusioned conservative voters. According to the final polls before voting began, Mamdani leads with around 44% support backing him. Cuomo trails with 38% and also Sliwa is at 11%, with the rest undecided at the moment. Beyond New York, elections in New Jersey and Virginia are also being seen as an early test of Trump's renewed political influence. But in the Big Apple, all eyes are on Mamdani, who could become the city's first Muslim and South Asian mayor. Election officials say polling across the city has been brisk despite bomb scare earlier this morning in neighboring New Jersey, where multiple polling places received email threats. Authorities confirmed that affected sites have been secured and voting has now resumed. Counting in New York City will begin soon, in a couple of minutes from now on, and the outcome could reshape the future of America's biggest city and signal the direction of U.S. politics in Donald Trump's second term, which began earlier this year.
Now, as Sakshi mentioned, that the stage is already set as the voting is underway, the high-octane mayor elections in the Big Apple, in a contest that has in fact seen the U.S. president stick his neck out in the elections. Now, Zohran Mamdani has emerged as the front-runner so far. And now, in fact, we saw a statement coming in from the U.S. President Donald Trump, who said that New York City's survival is at stake should Democratic candidate Zohran Mamdani win this election. Now, he also said that if a communist candidate, Zohran Mamdani, wins the election for the mayor of New York City, it is highly unlikely that I will be contributing federal funds to my beloved first home. In fact, he also added that this once a great city has zero chance of success or even survival. It can only get worse with a communist at the helm. Also adding that it is my strong conviction that New York City will be a complete and total economic and a social disaster should Mamdani win. He further said that his principles have been tested for over 1,000 years now and never once have they been successful. Now, Mamdani also responded to Trump's threat with calmness, saying that what Trump said is not a law and that it is time to stand up to bullies. Let's listen in as to what Mamdani's reaction has been.
I will address that threat for what it is. It is a threat. It is not the law. And too often we treat everything that comes out of Donald Trump's mouth as if it is already legal just by virtue of who is saying it. And it is time to finally stand up to the bullies that make these threats, not to become the bullies ourselves. And we've seen time and time again that the best way to respond to Donald Trump and to defeat these kinds of threats is to actually stand up and fight back. You've seen leaders across this country who have shown their unwillingness to compromise on their own morals and their own values as the way in which they fight back. And too often what we found in New York City is instead a willingness to capitulate and coordinate. And all of this with the most collaborative mayor you could find for Donald Trump in New York City.
All right, let's discuss this high-octane elections currently underway. We are also waiting for the results to emerge in a couple of minutes from now on. Seema Sirohi, columnist for Economic Times and author of Friends with Benefits, the US-India story. She's also joining us with Ambassador Deepak Vora, former Indian diplomat. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for the conversation here. Ishita, please take the chat forward first.
All right, Ambassador Vora, starting this conversation with you. It's one of the most watched city elections in the world. So starting with this question, what makes this New York mayor race so decisive nationally in the US?
Right. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. I've just returned from New York, so if I fall asleep, please scream out loudly and I'll wake up again. I'm on a different time zone. I was there when this election campaign was going on. I lived in Manhattan with my kid. Take a walk in the park every morning, and then there would be all this excitement. It's a kind of fever that I've not seen before in New York City. You're absolutely right. For a mayoral election, one doesn't see this kind of international attention. This is not the US presidential election that everybody's talking about. So why are they doing this? New York City is a sanctuary city. It's traditionally been democratic. I heard this guy, I shook his hand, the Zohran Mamdani. Very elegant fellow. He speaks extremely well. He is very energetic and he seems to be very down to earth. He hasn't responded to the attacks made by President Donald Trump in Donald Trump's language. He's been very measured and restrained. And then there were his kids. He has a whole team of volunteers. They are using social media, etc. What is the basic issue? He's saying New York has become very expensive. Ma'am, take my word for it. I go there every year for various reasons. It is unlivable. I mean, things that I would buy last year, go to the grocery store and come back having spent $150. This time was about $400 for the same items, roughly. So it's become extremely expensive. Housing is a disaster. About 98% of apartments in New York City are rented out. So only 2% remain, and there's a tremendous demand for that. So people are moving out because they can't afford it. Now, those who support Mamdani are these kids who feel excluded from the system, that we have no hope. Nothing is going to happen for us because, ma'am, the Americans criticize these chaps in Russia. They call them oligarchs who control all the money, etc. In the United States, they are the plutocrats. All the money, undue influence, and they control everything. And of course, New York is the second largest Jewish city in the world after Tel Aviv, I think, after Jerusalem or Tel Aviv probably. So what we are seeing there is these young kids getting up and saying, what is our future? We want change. We don't want the same old fellows coming back. Cuomo is now in his 70s. He's been mayor for 2 terms. His father was governor of the state for a long time. His brother used to be with CNN before he got sacked, etc. So he's one of those always hanging around chaps. Whereas Mamdani represents a breath of fresh air. Nevertheless, ma'am, and I'm sticking my neck out and saying it, it's not about subsidized housing or reducing inflation. The bottom line there, and I'm sorry I have to say this is a country I love dearly, both our kids live there. One is racism. They don't like this guy. Second is religion. He's Muslim. And New York doesn't like Muslim. Whatever you might say, people might be screaming and yelling. And the third thing is revivalism, which is that bring America back to greatness again. That also resonates with a lot of people. Whether you like Trump or you don't like Trump, the fact is that there is a very strong racist. I have been asked. In fact, some interesting side note before we hand you over to my colleague who's much better informed than I am. I was walking in Washington Square Park near where I live. Somebody came up and handed me this little flyer saying vote for Mamdani. And he asked, I said, look, kid, I'm not a US citizen, so I can't vote. And he says, oh, where are you from? I said, from India. He said, you know something? Mamdani is our Modi. So I was very happy to hear this kid say that to bring in change, to bring in inclusivity, etc., etc. So he obviously had a lot of respect for our Prime Minister. I felt 6 inches taller. Anyway, if I were there, I don't know who I would have voted for. But the bottom line is, the people of America, forget New York, which is, of course, it's the original state. The Statue of Liberty, Miss Liberty stands there. Give me your poor, your oppressed, your tempest off, for I hold my lamb beside the Golden Gate. It's the original immigration destination. The processing zone was New York. So still there is that much. Ma'am, it's unbelievable the distinct cultures. Rarely hear English being spoken. All kinds of languages are spoken there. But then election is an election, and I personally would not like to bet that Mamdani will win. I'm not sure that he will.
And, Ambassador Vora, since you have compared that what the chap had to say to you after comparing Mamdani with Prime Minister Modi, I want to ask this question to Seema ji because, 10 months into the office in his second term, Donald Trump is looking almost baffled with the kind of momentum Mamdani's campaign has gained, making such remarks in the second term of being President of the United States, of calling him Jew hater, calling Prime Minister Modi and comparing him with Netanyahu. I also want to understand from you, what do you think of these remarks coming Mamdani's way from Donald Trump and also now Elon Musk?
Okay, in terms of rhetoric, if President Trump is at this level, then Mamdani is also at the same level. The rhetoric he has used in his campaign against capitalists, against Israel, against rich people is pretty stark and quite strong. So I don't think he gets a pass in the liberal media, that is Mamdani. And in terms of whoever the ambassador met who compared him to Modi, that voter probably didn't know that Mamdani has extremely strong views on Modi, and he has taken to the streets and talked about the Gujarat riots, etc. And he is on the extreme left. What's happening in America is a struggle for the soul of the Democratic Party. The left is resurgent, but only in pockets where there is, New York is a very liberal city. So Mamdani is able to get where he is in terms of the polls and everything. But the center of the party is not with him. You might have noticed that Senator Chuck Schumer, who is from New York, he's a New York senator, he has not endorsed Mamdani. So the party is very conflicted about him because of the positions he has taken, to say nothing of all the programs and all the free things he is promising. He has yet to give a clear path to how he is going to finance those programs. So it's all very well to say, have a free bus ride, freeze the rent, etc. What it's going to do is the people who form the tax base of the New York City are fleeing in large numbers. There's a run on houses in Connecticut, which is adjacent to New York State. So people are just they're just going to leave. What is it going to do? So I don't understand his this whole extreme left position that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Mamdani have taken, because they don't have answers as to the economics of their program. Then the other problem has been, which has scared a lot of Jewish voters, lot of Indian Americans, and a lot of just regular African Americans. It is Mamdani's position on the Israel-Palestinian conflict. He has said things and he's refused to walk back. Then his position on policing, that defund the police. Then how can New York was in a very bad shape just a few years ago. It took a lot of effort and a lot of work to bring it to a somewhat safe situation where people can walk around at night. It's been in very bad state. In 1975, it went bankrupt. So it had to get a federal bailout. Now, So you can fight with Donald Trump, but he controls the purse strings, He can stop federal money. What's Mr. Mamdani going to do about it? So it's all very well to appeal to young white liberals mainly and the Muslim immigrant community. They're all for Mamdani because he's promising them housing and things like that. But if no new housing is built, then it doesn't help those people, and that's what's going to happen the
Right.
way he's going about it.
Right. Seema, I'm sorry for interrupting you over there. We've got a big update coming in. A fresh controversy has now erupted on polling day in New York City after tech billionaire Elon Musk called the city's ballot paper a quote-unquote scam. In a post that he has made on X recently, Elon Musk has questioned the integrity of the voting process, saying no ID was required and that other candidates appeared twice on the ballot pile. Andrew Cuomo's name was placed at the bottom right corner. The Board of Elections, meanwhile, says over 735,000 people have already voted early, nearly 4 times the 2021's turnout, as New Yorkers decide whether Zohran Mamdani, Andrew Cuomo or Curtis Sliwa will lead the city. Ambassador Vora, let me speak to you about this massive turnout. I believe that, compared to the data of the last 3 decades, this massive turnout only in the city of New York, it does show the new wave coming, and Democrats are almost certain that, the new centrist or the left-inclined government is in the making. Do you think that it is going to set some sort of precedence for the next year's midterm elections?
I doubt if it will have any great impact on the midterms, which are to be held next year, with the Democrats looking for control of whatever they want to control the House, etc. But what Ma'am Sarohi said is absolutely right. The Muslim immigrant community is going to vote for this guy. So you see, the element of religion is already there. The element of racism also is already there. And as far as the Gujarat riots are concerned, that is forgotten. These kids who are 20 or 21 years old, they have no idea. They just know that India is racing ahead and it's headed by a chap led by a person called Narendra Modi. So they've heard the name and they talk about it. Well, my own feeling is, ma'am, that with Elon Musk now coming out and saying this is a scam, this controversy is not going anywhere. I think President Donald Trump might just honor his threat to arrest and deport Mamdani. Deport him, I presume, to Uganda, because that's where his parents had emigrated from India some generations ago, and he had come from there. I have no idea what he's going to do, but what we've seen of President Trump's behavior so far is that he means what he says what he means, and he's quite capable of doing it. Then what happens? Then we're going to have to see an entirely new chapter in the history and the present situation in the United States. I hope it doesn't result in increased violence, but we've seen enough of that, and God knows that in New York City itself, and there's been, as ma'am pointed out, it's been through a very difficult time. It was meant to be the dream city, no longer is. And so people leaving, etc., because they can't afford it. If you have to spend 3 times what you were spending 2 years ago and your salaries haven't gone up, well, then you're in trouble. So you leave the best schools, you go to wherever you can, to neighboring cities and towns. And then what happens? Rents there go up also. So it's a kind of cascade effect we are seeing. My own feeling is, ma'am, again, I'm sticking my neck out. Cuomo is a tried and tested politician.
Yeah.
He may have had these issues with some women accusing him of molestation. Yes. This guy is the new kid on the block. At my age, I'm 74. I would go with a tried and trusted fellow. I don't know what New York will hold.
Okay.
All
Again,
right,
I hope they don't cancel my visa.
That is a concern. In a short while from now, we'll exactly know who becomes the mayor of New York City and whether the vote for Mamdani is actually a vote for him or an anti-Trump vote. On that point, Seema Sirohi and Ambassador Vora, thank you so much for joining us on News 9.